Hello everybody and welcome back to Screen Stars. Well, here is my review for the brand new Vampyr role-playing game that is released by Focus Entertainment. Now, this is a film that ever since it was announced I've been really looking forward to. I love the vampire genre. There's never been, in my opinion, a really fantastic vampire game, certainly for consoles. I remember playing the Legacy of Kain games many years ago, the PlayStation 1 and stuff, and they were pretty cool. But ever since I saw the concept of this at E3, probably a couple of years ago now, I got really excited by it. And this essentially is exactly what it says on the tin. It's a story-driven vampire role-playing game. Now, straight off the bat, I'm a huge fan of role-playing games. I always have been. For me, they can be really immersive, and if they're done properly, they really can be brilliant. Now, I'm of the fan of role-playing games like Witcher 3 and the Skyrims, mainly the Western ones. And this really sparked my imagination as to what a role-playing vampire game could give us. And now it's been newly released this week, and I've been playing it pretty much constantly since it's been released. Every spare minute I've had, I've been playing it, and I'm in a really good position now to give you guys a pretty in-depth review. I'm not going to give you any spoilers in the review in regards to the story and things like that, because you're best playing it yourself. But essentially this story focuses on you play a character called Jonathan Reid, who is a returning surgeon from the front line of the war, basically First World War, and it is set in London in 1918, I believe. And there's a massive outbreak of the Spanish flu in London. It's a really awful place to be right now, and there's also an abundance of beasties in London, like vampires and things. And at the beginning of the game, you basically wake up and you've already been turned. You're really confused, you don't know what's happening, and you have to go on the hunt to find out what has happened to you and why. And along the way, you have a lot of moral choices to make, because he has his oath as a doctor to save lives, which he still feels passionate about, but also he now has this thirst for blood, this constant thirst for blood that he has to quench that thirst at the same time. So he has to balance his morals with his needs, basically, and that's the thing that this game does better than everything. Is it forces you to balance your own morals in regards to how you play this game, and it's got some really interesting mechanics going on. And for example, it makes it very clear to you very early in the game that this game will ultimately be much easier to play if you basically give in to your needs and kill people. However, if you do that, you will not get the full in-depth experience of this game, because of the characters that you can feed on in the game. Every single one of them is unique, and every single one of them has their own story to tell, and some of them will really end up being integral parts of the story and will give you quests and missions to do. So if you just go around indiscriminately sucking people's blood, then you're not going to enjoy the game to its full potential. But it will make you very powerful very quickly, because the only way you can level up in this game is by using the experience you have gained. Now, you gain experience through talking to people, doing investigations, the combat and things, but it's only quite minimal. The main experience you get is when you actually bite and kill people as a vampire. And there might be some characters, and it shows you on the screens, that if you suck their blood and kill them, you might get 5,000 experience. And put that into context, by completing a fairly bog standard mission, you might get a couple of hundred experience. You know, by coming out of a combat situation, you might gain 50 experience. So the experience that you gain just by doing normal everyday kind of stuff is minimal compared to the experience you will gain by killing people. So you've got a choice to make. Are you going to be picky and choosy about whose blood you're going to suck? But that will actually make it more difficult for you to level up. And I found that balance wonderful, because it really does make you question what you're going to do as this creature, as this vampire. And I've been playing the game now a good few hours now, my goodness, and I've been really picky and choosy. I mean, I didn't kill anyone purposely until probably about 7 hours into the game, and I made a decision because I got all the hints, I learned everything I could about the character, and I made a decision: if I took this person's life, how would it affect the story, and ultimately, is it what they wanted? Potentially some of them might want to die. So I really took a long time to choose who I was going to kill first, and even then I felt guilty afterwards. It does really a fantastic job of making you question and decide who you're going to do, who you're going to kill. And if you do go around killing people indiscriminately, then the districts, it's a semi-open world, and it's split into 4 districts, I believe. And if you kill too many people in a district, then the safety level of that district will drop, and if it drops to a really serious level, then it's going to be overrun with beasties and vampires and monsters and all this other sort of stuff. So you've got to really be careful about who you're going to kill, why you're going to kill, because ultimately it will affect your gameplay experience. So I think it's a tremendous mechanic that they've put in this, and it almost works flawlessly to a certain degree. The game itself is very heavy on the dialogue, but the story is so compelling that you don't mind, because you want to learn more about these people, because ultimately you're going to decide if they're going to live or are they going to die. So you're quite interested to ask them questions and learn more about them, because ultimately that will go towards your decision as to whether you're going to kill them or not, or who you're going to leave alive. So it does a brilliant job of that, this game. I have to say, I really do have to tip my hat to it. A lot of the things that I've seen are giving the game a pretty hard time on the combat. Now I have to say, the weakest part of the game is the combat. It almost does feel kind of tacked on. It kind of feels like they felt they had to put it in there to a certain degree. And now it's not bad, the combat, but it's nothing innovative. It reminded me a little bit of the combat in Witcher 3, which has its critics as well, the combat in that game. But it feels a bit, I don't know, it's the weakest part of the game, the combat, put it this way, and it revolves around, you can use like slashing weapons, clubbing weapons. You've got guns that you can use. You can stun enemies, and when they're stunned you can bite them to suck on the blood. And if you get your rage meter filled up high enough, you can pull off like this big vampire move on them. And so it's pretty good. Can get a bit frustrating at times, because you might wander into an area where the bad guys are too powerful for you and you die quite a lot. But some of the early quests kind of send you in those directions anyway, so it kind of get a little bit frustrating. You've got all your traditional vampire powers that you could imagine here. You know, you can, as you can see on screen now, you can focus on the bodies, and it identifies who they are. There is a level of mesmerize. If you decide you're going to feed on somebody, you have to double check that you have the right mesmerize level, and it's kind of like you hypnotize them and walk them to a darkened corner and then feed on them, but their level might be too high for you early in the game. So there's a lot here to enjoy, guys. There really is. If you're not into heavy dialogue RPGs, and it's all voice acted, pretty decent voice acting for the most part, then you probably want to stay away from this. But to be honest, the best part of this game is like the investigations that you're doing and talking to people and learning about them, because ultimately it all matters. Some RPGs, you talk to people and they're just completely useless characters that you're never ever going to talk to again, or they're just boring, or they're uninteresting, whereas all the characters that I've come across so far in the game, they serve a purpose, they're interesting, and ultimately it's all knowledge that you need to make a decision whether they're going to live or die. So every single NPC in this game has a purpose. And it really does flip the switch sometimes, in the sense of you make your mind up, oh, that's a horrible, nasty person, I'm going to eat them. And then you learn something about them that makes you think twice. Maybe they're a really horrible person on the outside, but when you might learn that actually at home they're looking after a sick relative, and if you kill that person, that sick relative isn't going to have anybody to care for them. And it's brilliant. It really does make you question your morals, this game, guys. Now, graphically, it's nothing special to look at. At times it looks really nice, and at other times it looks a bit last gen. So it's not what you would call AAA, but it doesn't pretend to be AAA. This game, it's more AA in regards to its quality, even though they are charging AAA price for the game. But if you're a fan of this type of RPG, heavily story-driven RPG, then I would definitely say it's worth the price. This, for me, is right up there with my favourite games of the year so far, because of the genre, because of the vampire angle, because of the clever mechanics in the game, the way it makes you question your decisions, and it makes you really think about what you're going to do in regards to the NPCs in the game and the decisions you're going to make around those. So I have to say, guys, this for me is a really, really strong game. I don't think it's for everybody, and I would say if you're not a fan of RPGs, especially very heavily story-driven RPGs, this game is not going to be to your liking. Definitely isn't. The combat is definitely frustrating. It does kind of get easier the more powerful you get, but I've kind of gone down that route of I am not going to kill people indiscriminately, so I'm kind of underpowered most of the time. So it does make it a bit more challenging, which is hard for me, because I usually like the story aspect of games and not necessarily the combat. But if I want to enjoy the story aspect of this game, I can't enjoy the combat. It lets you choose between one or the other almost. So yeah, guys, I'm going to give this game a really, really strong 8.5 out of 10. Thoroughly enjoying it. I haven't completed it fully yet, but I would imagine in the next day or two I'll be finished. And I think it's probably going to be between 30 and 40 hours, potentially more, depending on how much of a completionist you are for a game like this. So yeah, guys, 8.5 out of 10 for this game. Definitely worth it. It's a really, really interesting, fun game, and if you love the vampire genre and the mythos and everything surrounding vampires, I think you're going to love it. So thank you very much for watching, everybody.